The night it all began, the rain was slamming against the hospital windows so hard it sounded like the sky itself was angry. And there I was, Daniel Morales, 36 years old, a man who'd spent most of his life building a tech empire that everyone in town said was impossible for a kid from nothing. I had money, sure, the kind people whisper about, the kind that gets you the corner penthouse and the shiny car no one can pronounce. But on that night, sitting in a fluorescent-lit pediatric waiting room, my $5,000 suit still dripping from the storm, I felt like the loneliest man in the world. I wasn't supposed to be there. A business dinner had been canceled. One of my partners had rushed his daughter into the ER, and somehow I got swept along in the chaos. I remember drumming my fingers on the plastic chair, checking my phone for the 100th time, thinking of all the deals piling up in my inbox. And then she appeared. A little girl in a faded hospital gown, maybe 5 years old, with curls tied back by a ribbon so yellow it glowed against the dull hallway walls. She walked slowly, one hand trailing the wall to keep herself steady, her cheeks flushed with fever. She stopped right in front of me, looked up with these wide, serious eyes, and said, "You look sad." I laughed a little, awkward, like I'd been caught off guard. "I'm not sad. I'm just waiting. Waiting for what she asked. For my friend to finish with the doctors." She nodded, like it all made sense, then tilted her head. "Are you rich?" I nearly choked. "Why do you ask?" "Because your clothes look expensive and that watch sparkles," she said, pointing right at my Rolex. "Rich people usually don't sit here unless they have to." There was no judgment in her voice, just curiosity. For some reason, I answered her honestly. "Yeah, I guess I am." Her whole face lit up. "That's good. Rich people can help more." Then, without missing a beat, she leaned closer and whispered, "If you carry me upstairs, I'll tell you a secret." Now, I should have called a nurse, right? That's what my head was screaming. But my heart hadn't spoken up in years, and that night it finally did. "Where do you need to go?" I asked. "Third floor. My mama works there. I want to see her, but my fever makes me dizzy." She held out her tiny hand like she was giving me a choice. So I bent down, lifted her, and in that moment, I swear she weighed less than my regrets. "What's your name?" I asked. "Lila," she said, smiling faintly. "What's yours, Daniel?" "That sounds strong," she whispered, laying her head on my shoulder. "So will you help me? I promise. The secret is worth it." The elevator was broken, so we took the stairs. Step by step, her voice floated against the walls like she was telling me a bedtime story I never knew I needed. "The first part of the secret," she said, "is that being sick isn't the worst thing. The worst thing is being lonely. But you don't have to be lonely if you know how to find love." I climbed my expensive shoes, clicking on the concrete, and for the first time in years, I wondered when was the last time I shared anything that wasn't about profit. By the time we reached the third floor, I'd almost forgotten why I came to that hospital in the first place. She pointed down the hallway to a young woman mopping the floor near the nurse's station. Tired shoulders, calloused hands, uniform, embroidered with the name Elena Morales. The resemblance was undeniable. Mama Lila cried. Elena's head shot up, her eyes wide. Relief and confusion battled across her face as she dropped the mop and rushed toward us. "Lila, what are you doing up here, and who Mama this is?" "Daniel," the girl explained. "He carried me because I missed you." "Don't worry, he's nice. He has a kind face even when he pretends to be serious." Elena narrowed her eyes at me, protective, cautious. "Thank you for bringing her." "But sir, you didn't have to," she asked me. I cut in gently, setting Lila down. The little girl beamed and tugged both our hands together like she was tying us with invisible string. "See, we're already friends." That was the first time I saw Elena's defenses crack just slightly, like a wall, letting in the smallest sliver of sunlight. We ended up in the family room, walls painted with cartoon animals, toys scattered everywhere. Lila snuggled on her mother's lap, still flushed, but determined to continue her lesson. The next part of the secret, she said, is that love doesn't cost anything, but it's worth more than all the money in the world. And when you give it away, you don't lose it, you get more. I sat there in a child-sized chair, a billionaire reduced to silence by a girl who could barely tie her shoes, and I realized I'd been starving for words like those. In the weeks that followed, I kept coming back. First with groceries too much, Elena said, but Lila reminded her mama remember. Accepting help lets love grow. Then dinners at their apartment where mismatched plates and laughter filled the room in a way my penthouse never had. Then weekends at the park feeding ducks, Lila giggling like she'd discovered magic, and Elena watching us with that mix of pride and worry only mothers carry. But life has a way of testing lessons. One night, Elena called me in a panic. Lila had collapsed at school. We rushed her to the hospital. While doctors checked for pneumonia, Elena's voice cracked. I should have noticed sooner. Some mother I am. I held her shoulders firmly. Don't you dare. You're the best mother I've ever seen. And this isn't just your burden anymore. It's ours. When Lila finally opened her eyes, weak but smiling, she whispered, "See, Daniel, love heals. That's the secret." Weeks later, after she'd recovered, she fell asleep on my shoulder during a movie night, her tiny hand gripping mine like she knew I wasn't going anywhere. Elena glanced over her face, soft. "She's been telling people you're her dad," she admitted. I swallowed hard. "How do you feel about that?" "Terrified," she said honestly. "What if you walk away? What if we get used to you and you decide we're not enough?" From the couch came Lila's sleepy murmur. "Love isn't scary when it's real. Real love doesn't leave. That little eavesdropper saved me again." Months passed, and my world turned upside down in the best way. Board meetings were no longer my priority. Walking Lila to school, listening to her chatter about ducks and drawings that became my measure of success. Elena fought me on every offer of help, but slowly, with every bill I paid and every dinner I cooked, she let me in. Not as a savior, not as a rich man buying his way in, but as family. The day we stood in court, Lila in her best dress, her hand in mine, I was more nervous than I'd ever been signing a $100 million deal. The judge looked down at her kindly. "Do you understand what adoption means, young lady?" "Yes, ma'am," she said without hesitation. "It means Daniel becomes my daddy forever, and he promises to love me even when I mess up or get sick. And I want that more than anything." The judge turned to me. "And do you accept?" My voice was steady for once in my life, not about business, not about money. "Yes." I promised to love her unconditionally, to put her needs before my own, to be the father she deserves. When the gavel came down, Lila threw her arms around my neck and whispered, "Now you're really my daddy forever and ever." I whispered back, "I always was." This just made it official. That night, surrounded by neighbors and friends with balloons and cake, and a banner that read, "Welcome to the family. Daddy Daniel." I realized something no stock chart or Forbes list could teach me. Real wealth isn't in numbers. It's in love, shared in laughter, around a dinner table, in a little girl's drawing pinned to a fridge. And yet, here's where I'll leave you with the part that might stir some debate because Elena still struggles. She still wonders if accepting my help makes her less strong, less independent. And sometimes I wonder if people will always think I used money to buy my way into their lives. So I'm asking you, what do you think is love about independence proving you can stand alone? Or is it about admitting you can't do it all, that you need others? That sharing burdens is what makes families real? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is bigger than just my story. It's about all of us. And if you take nothing else from tonight, remember the secret that changed my life. Love only grows when you share it.